Welcome to More Than the Career Podcast, the show about who people are and not necessarily what they do. My name is Greg Taylor, and I am your host. Tonight we have a very special guest. We have my friend John Hawkins, who I've known since about 2010. And John is a WordPress developer and founder of 9 Seeds development company out of Las Vegas. So John and I are going to talk about life, work, WordPress, what makes him tick, what keeps him going, what his hobbies are, and all that good stuff, so you can really get to know who John is as a person, and let's see what we have in common with one another. And I'm really happy to have him on the show. I've known John for many years, but this is my first time really sitting down and doing some sort of formal interview with him. So without any further ado, I bring you John Hawkins of 9 Seeds. So John, thanks for being on the show. You are guest number 2. Super awesome. Happy to have you here. So tell me a little bit about 9 Seeds and what you do.
We're, standard off-the-shelf WordPress development company. We do, we consider ourselves more the development side of things. We typically, people come to us either with an existing design or we outsource some design. And but then we do site development, custom plugin development. We really kind of jack of all trades, really like solving puzzles. So building stuff that answers people's problems really is what we like to do.
So that's a lot like what we do in Marketing Press. It's like, we're problem solvers. We just happen to use WordPress and code.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's kind of what I've done my entire career, really, even long before WordPress.
Isn't it funny? Like, it's like, we're all problem solvers in one way or another. It's just what medium are we using to solve those problems?
Yeah. Going back long before WordPress and even before my previous company, like we were, I used to call them like admin panels because when people wanted to sell products and like the initial way back when PayPal was first kind of really taking over as a payment gateway, the idea of putting together a PayPal store of your own was an absolute nightmare. It was just so brutal. The documentation was terrible. So I built this little piece of software that was just kind of like a very rudimentary CMS PayPal sales thing. And like I wrapped that thing up and I sold it for like $20 a pop. And I sold just hundreds of them because there wasn't really anything out there to do that. So right. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's all about solving problems. It's pretty cool. We're fortunate that we get to help people and see and help them move down their own journey that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, well,
absolutely.
And knowing you for a couple of years now, I've seen a big transformation in you personally and your habits, Yeah. And I remember, and I was just laughing at it. I was actually going through Twitter trying to find an old tweet to call you out on it, but I couldn't go back that far. About all the late nights at Whataburger or Carl's Jr., all the fast food.
Yeah.
Like, you're always like the fast food junkie kind of guy.
Totally.
Right? And then, like myself, you got you rediscovered fitness.
Yeah.
And now, like in one of your bios I just read, you even have it say a CrossFit junkie.
I am, totally.
So how did that happen? And, how big of a part of your life is that?
Man, well, I hit 235 pounds. It was the heaviest I'd ever been. And, my wife and I were at the Apple store. And she was walking down the aisle and she saw they sold the Fitbit.
Right.
And she says, I kind of want to try one of these. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. So we both got one, both charged them up, put them on. And like the next day, like immediately, hey, somebody's keeping score. Let's go.
Right.
And so, we just started trying to get those 10,000 steps. And then like, as we were doing that, I just started eating better. I don't want to say that I went on a diet because that's not,
right.
I don't like that word because a diet is something that you do for a certain amount of time and then you stop. Well, what happens when you stop? Do you just go right back to eating In-N-Out Burger at 10:30 at night and with a large Coke and a large fry?
Right.
That doesn't work. So what we did was we just kind of made some changes and just started making some smarter decisions and really just kind of tried to focus on, like, I don't eat late at night. I try to eat breakfast now, which is a big thing for me because I never used to do it. And if you don't eat breakfast, then what happens is later on during the day, you just need to get all the food in your face as fast as you can.
Right.
So we did all of that, and then I lost about 20 pounds, and I had a buddy who was doing CrossFit for a couple of years, and he'd been asking me to try it, and so I finally said, okay, I'm in. So I tried it. I did like the little you have to do like a 5-class intro type thing where they teach all the basic movements. And seriously, by class 2, I was absolutely hooked. I knew this was something that I definitely wanted to do. And now I do. I just absolutely love it.
Right.
I go 5 times a week. I've been buying a bunch of gear. I have it in my garage. I love it. I went to the earlier class tonight so that I could come home and record this
Nice.
podcast with you
Well,
because I knew I didn't want to. I just didn't want to miss CrossFit. I'm just like,
Right.
okay, well, how do I still fit it in? And so a lot of that really had to do with turning the focus and taking time for myself because I wasn't doing that for a long time. And I think that's something that all of us kind of run into especially when we run a business. It's so easy to say, oh yeah, I can't go out tonight because I've got those 5 emails I gotta answer, or I can't do this weekend because I gotta build that thing. And what ends up happening?
That proposal is due.
Yeah, exactly. And so all of those things, if you continue to push those things off and you don't make yourself a priority, then you never become the priority.
Right.
And that's kind of what happened for me and for a lot of people I know is just so much time went by and hey, wow, look, I gained 50 pounds. I mean, whoops.
I have a very, very similar story where, when I started Marketing Press, I was in the best shape of my life. I was like 205 pounds,
Yeah.
lean, athletic, everything. And then all of a sudden I got too busy. I
Yep.
got too busy for exercise. And what happened over time was I ended up at 270 pounds as of like last winter. 265, 270, which is the heaviest I've ever been. So, Christina,
And it's scary, right?
It's really scary because it happens overnight, and you don't see it until you're really fat.
Exactly.
Like you don't see the intermediate like fatness; you just see really fat.
Yeah.
And I use the term fat because I'm calling myself that, so it was one of those things where I had to make the time, and I had to change my lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so, Christina, my fiance, and I, we started working with a personal trainer that was recommended with us. And I work out with him now 3 times a week. And he has us on this meal plan, which we're not 100% successful with all of the time, right?
Yeah.
But I figure for us is if we make more right choices than wrong choices,
Yeah.
we're still way ahead of the game.
Totally.
The other
Without a
thing
doubt.
that he
And it's sustainable though. It's sustainable.
because it's not a diet, it's a plan.
Exactly.
It's a lifestyle plan.
Yep.
Yeah, and I liked what you said about diet because diets come and go, and and it's this and this or that, and anytime you're in any sort of starvation or sprint mode for a long time, like it's not sustainable.
Right.
You know?
And also like with a diet, like if you go, then what happens is there's like a negativity that gets built around food as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you go out and you have an In-N-Out burger or Carl's Jr., and then you're kicking yourself for it, that's just as bad. Like that doesn't help you. Like then it screws with the mental side, which then once you kind of fall off the train, oh well, I already ate bad, so I may as well go have 4 scoops of ice cream to go with that. And so then here's the thing, if I want a double cheeseburger, I'm gonna go have a double cheeseburger.
Right.
I just don't do it 5 times a week. That's all. So that's kind of my take on it. So
Yeah.
there you go. Those are my dietary solutions right there.
Yeah, and it was just saying it's a lifestyle thing. It's a
Yeah.
sustainable lifestyle we feel like we have now with our trainer Andrew Hangardner and his wife Kimberly, and it's amazing. Like I was up and out of the house this morning at 6:30 a.m. to get to the gym by 7 to come back to be in the office by 8:45.
Yep.
And
exactly.
before I would have been like, oh shit, I gotta be in the office at 8:45. I'm just gonna sleep in.
I'll just sleep in.
or whatever,
I work in the other room, so that means I don't have to get up till 8:40. Perfect. Good.
Right,
Let's
yeah.
go.
Yeah, hey, nobody's gonna see me. I probably don't even have to change all that much. So,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
has it been a journey for just you or the whole family or?
Well, I mean, when the wife as well, she's been working out, she's been doing CrossFit as well. the kids not so much, but I mean they kind of feel the effects of the diet because Chris is the one cooking,
Right.
so
Yeah.
everybody kind of gets it. But at the same time, we're not our kids are both rail thin, so
Right.
we can't like remove all of that stuff for them. We actually were trying to fatten them up a little bit because they were so thin. But like if we do, so sometimes Chris will cook. Like if we're going to do like spaghetti and meatballs. So we'll make spaghetti and meatballs for the kids, but then we'll take the meatballs and put them on scrambled eggs for
Right.
us. So, by the way, scrambled eggs, meatballs, and some marinara sauce is fantastic.
That sounds like something I would have grown up on in New Jersey.
It's brilliant. It's so good. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So, are you active in like any other sports, or you're a sports fan? Correct. You're a hockey fan. I know
Hockey
that.
fan. I am a
Right,
hockey
hockey
fan.
fan.
I love hockey. I follow hockey. LA Kings have been my team forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know.
I'm a New York Rangers fan, so
Yeah. Oh,
you got
I'm
the
so
best. You
sorry.
got the. You know what though? You got the best of us. But that was a great series.
It was.
You
It
know,
was a
it was
great
a great
series.
series.
Three
And
overtimes, I think. There were three different overtime
yeah,
games.
3 overtimes. I think I lost 30 years of my life with each shot that went.
Sure,
You
sure.
know,
Yeah.
there's just something about playoff overtime hockey.
Nothing better.
There's nothing better in sports. And then
Nothing.
if you can combine that with like an elimination game, let's not even say game 7 because of course that
Yeah.
would be overtime playoff hockey. Every shot, every mistake
Yeah.
is just magnified, and it's incredible, right?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but so Chris and I have been Kings fans for probably close to 20 years or so, and so when the Kings when they made it to the finals, all right, when they made it into the semifinals in 2012, they
Okay.
played against Phoenix.
Right.
So tickets in LA are brutally expensive, but since they were playing against Phoenix, we called there, or we went on to like StubHub or
Right.
something like that the night before game one, and I got tickets like 10 rows off the ice for like $100 a ticket. So we bought those, hopped in the car, drove out there, saw the game, they won, awesome. And I turned to Chris, I'm like, if there's a game 5, we're coming back. So they lost game 4, so there was going to be a game 5. Went on to StubHub again, bought tickets on the fifth 5 rows off the ice for like $110 or something like that. So we got to go there. The Kings won, knocked them out of the playoffs, which by the way turned then Phoenix, the arena kind of turned a little violent towards Kings fans.
Oh,
We saw a guy get punched in the face.
yeah.
Like it wasn't cool. Chris was like, we're never coming back here again. But so then when the Kings went to the finals
Mhm.
against the Devils, they won the first 3, and so when Game 4 was going to be in LA, I turned to Chris. I'm like, we should go. And I went and I looked, and tickets to get in, like in the door, were like $2,000 a piece
Jeez.
to sit like way in the
Right.
nosebleeds. And I told her, I turned to her, and I'm like, look, we could do it. It's gonna hurt, but we could do it. And then we didn't do it, and then they lost. Then we talked about flying to New Jersey to go. Didn't do it, and then they lost. Then they came back to LA, and like at that point, like the bandwagon fans were just like jumping ship. Oh, the Kings are done. We're still up 3-2, you idiots.
Right. Right.
So we looked, tickets and prices had plummeted. We bought tickets, drove to LA literally 13 hours after we had just driven back from LA, which is a totally different story. But so Chris and I actually got to be there and be at the game when the Kings won their first Stanley
Oh,
Cup.
that's awesome. You're
So-
you're from LA, or
From LA.
from the area, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I'm from Redondo,
Okay,
and
right.
Chris is from Long Beach. But so to actually be there and just like
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
it was unbelievable. I have never been in an arena that it was so loud when they scored. Like the crowd was so loud you could barely hear the horn that was going off from the arena. It was absolutely amazing.
That's awesome. I've grew up playing hockey. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
New York Rangers fan. I've played my whole life until a couple of knee injuries kind of sidelined it.
Yeah.
So I think there's nothing better than that game. I mean, it's just and that's one of the games to really appreciate it. You have to see it in person.
Oh,
Because
totally.
there's nothing like watching like somebody with a crisp pass and it hit the back of hit the blade, and it's just the sound, just everything.
Yeah.
So another thing about the Kings that I remember us talking about once is you were there at the game when Gretzky scored the goal for the record, right?
802.
802.
March 23rd. We were there. So get this. This is pretty sweet. I used to play in an adult hockey league in LA, and they would buy ice time at the Forum after the Kings games. So the way that it worked was your team had to sell something like 75 tickets, and then you would get to go and see the game and then play right after the game. So we knew about it, so we got our tickets like 4 months in advance or something like that. We couldn't sell tickets to save our lives. At the time, the
Right.
Kings were terrible, and you couldn't give away the Kings tickets.
Right.
And so then, as it was starting to get closer, then we started noticing like this whole Gretzky thing was going to be close.
Right.
So then my buddy who worked at Costco at the time, he's like, "Hey, do you still have all those tickets?" We're like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'll take 20 of them." We're like, "Thanks, man." Done. Sold them. The night before that game, they played up in San Jose. Gretzky scored 2 goals to tie the record.
Right.
And so then you could not find a ticket because that place was just sold out. So we got to go there, watch the game. Gretzky scores goal 802. The place goes just fucking berserk. And they speech, blah, 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 the whole thing. Middle of the third period, me and my team go into the hallway, change our clothes, game ends, da-da-da. They go off. We get to go play on the same ice. I step onto the ice. I go and I just skate straight over to where he shot from.
Right to the left
just
slot.
Stood there.
Yeah, right from the left slot. Yeah.
Just stood there. I'm like, that was it.
Yep.
802.
That's
I
amazing.
swear to
That's so
God,
cool.
when they show even just like talking about it now, I have goosebumps. When they show it again, on any highlight show, I just big, huge smile. And I'm just like, that was it, man.
And the assist was by Marty McSorley, right?
Marty McSorley and I believe Luke Robitaille.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So it's funny, growing up, Mark Messier is my hockey guy. Right?
Probably my favorite
Right.
player of all time.
My favorite player. And I always think that, I always try to model how I run my company a little bit like, Messier in a weird sense is I always think that Messier is the greatest teammate ever.
Yep.
And he's always there to support his guys and pick up his guys. And I remember, watching him as a Ranger, and somebody would take a run at a Kevin Lowe or somebody like that, and the next thing you knew, Messier has an elbow up in the guy and taking care of business there.
Yeah.
So Messier is always my guy. And growing up a hockey fan, I never really I knew Gretzky was great, of course, right? But I didn't have the privilege of watching him every night until he came to the Rangers.
Sure.
And then when he played those 3 seasons with the Rangers, and even though it was at the end of his career and you got to watch him every night, then you were just like, holy shit, this is something like nobody else.
Yeah, totally.
It was.
There was a year where we went to we didn't have season seats, but we probably went to about half of the Kings games, and it was early on when Gretzky had just got here, and I mean he's so good.
Yeah,
it's men playing with boys. I mean it was just he saw the ice so well. He was just such a different thinker of the game, and now it's funny because now fast forward 20 years, and there's so much technology that goes into the way that teams prepare for games now that, game films. And I mean, obviously everyone watched game films from before, but now everything is just so figured out down to the nth degree, Right. And so if you think about it, I don't think there will ever be a player that is that much better than everybody else in the game or
Right.
like that. I mean, a guy like Sidney Crosby. Crosby is an amazing player, but so's Ovechkin.
Yes.
And
he's not that far ahead of everybody else the way that Gretzky was.
Stamkos, that guy's awesome. I mean, there's
it's just one of those things that you can train and you can teach skill and you can develop skill, but the vision. Yeah, and just knowing what to do before the situation came up.
Yeah,
always. So it was what I finally was able to appreciate towards the end of his end of his career. So that's really cool. I knew you were a hockey fan. I knew that we had that in common, but playing on that ice right after that happened, that's incredible. That's a great moment.
It was unbelievable. It really was. Then my wife and I had a client who was in Toronto, and that's where the Hall of Fame is. Sure. And so we went to go there to meet the client, and I said, okay, there's two things I got to do. Got to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, and got to go eat at Gretzky's pub.
Right.
And so we went to the Hall of Fame, and the great thing is they have the 802. They have the goal. Oh. They have the goal sitting there, and with like 802 pucks filling the net.
Wow, that's cool.
And so so good.
Yeah,
like,
that's such a great sport. It's such a great team sport. I mean, if you get on the ice with it's a lot like working. If you're working with the right team, all towards a common goal. Like you're on the ice with, 4 other guys that you really click with and mesh with. Whether it's on your line or just other teammates on and off the ice. There's something about just making good things happen together that No,
it's teamwork is teamwork. I mean, no matter what you're doing. I mean, you're playing hockey, great. You're building a website, great. I mean, if you don't have the right teammates, I mean, it's just not going to work. And that's why, I mean, you've got trades, you've got people that come and go. Not everybody's a fit all the time.
Yeah, and just because somebody was a fit at one time doesn't mean they're always going to be a fit. And that's
Absolutely.
One of the things that's always a sort of a struggle. You know what I mean? Like you work with somebody for a while, and then you're just like, this isn't really working anymore.
I worked at my last place for 10 years, and I tell this story that for 9 years that I worked there, I loved it, and the only problem was I worked there for 10 years, and I would have chewed my arm off that 10th year to get out of there. So
yeah.
It's just the way it goes.
That's a good way to phrase it. I don't think I've never been anywhere for 10 years. So not yet. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see what happens. I also know that you guys are huge music fans.
I love music. Live music. It's awesome. Like we travel a lot to go see music, and it's fun too because we like a lot of bands that aren't necessarily real popular, kind of fly under the radar a little bit.
Likewise, so do we. Yeah. Cross-Canadian Ragweed.
Cross-Canadian Ragweed. Like we've traveled, like we've seen them in. I've seen them in Vegas.
Right.
But actually, the first time we ever saw them, we were actually at House of Blues here in Vegas. We went to go see Dierks Bentley, and they were the opening act. And we had never heard of Cross-Canadian Ragweed. And they came on, and like everybody in the crowd knew every word to every song. And I'm like, how the fuck have we missed these guys? These guys rule. Right. And so after that, like we've seen them in LA and Phoenix, and we drove to Idaho to go to a 3-day concert to go see them. And like we've seen them all over the place. And as a matter of fact, Monday night, I'm actually seeing Cody Canada, his new band, The Departed. Nice. They're playing here in town.
Oh, fantastic. So well, that's good because I'll look out for them because I'm sure that Cody will be coming through Phoenix. If they go to Vegas, they come through Phoenix also.
Dude, they hardly ever come through L.A. or Las Vegas. It sucks. Yeah, they do a C right around us. They go California, Arizona, and out the other side.
And the only reason we get it in Arizona is because we're in between L.A. and somewhere else on the 10.
They just have to stop for the night anyway. Yeah. Fuck it, we may as well play.
Well, yeah, because my friend has a band who tours nationally, and his saying is, if you're not playing, you're paying. Yeah. So he's like, if we're gonna stay in a hotel, we might as well just play some gigs somewhere and break even for the night versus.
Yeah, I got a buddy who's doing this thing here in town called house shows, and he basically opens up his house to bands like that are just kind of coming through or whatever, and so he doesn't charge anything. He doesn't make anything on it. He's literally doing it just for the love of the music, and then so he charges people like $10, but all that money goes straight to the act. And so we went over and we saw a guy play some guitar over there and sing some songs. Excuse me. And it was so cool. It was such a cool, chill, laid-back type thing. But I'll throw out a band that if you haven't heard of them, you have to go check them out because they're somebody I just found at a music festival. J. Roddy Walston and the Business.
Okay.
There's a song.
Point taken.
Yeah, you got to go check them out. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, we're just like you guys. If there's a band playing, we're big Wilco fans.
Okay.
So like I scheduled a couple of business meetings in New York around a couple of Wilco shows in October.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that, you know. So like we'll do that. We'll travel to Mexico once every other year. See Roger Klein, the Peacemakers, our friend Roger,
cool.
and
Okay.
stuff. And that's actually how I met Cody Canada and Cross Canadian Ragweed through those guys, and I was introduced to like all of that different music, that Red Dirt.
Yeah. Red Dirt country.
And it's like, I'm a guy from New Jersey, right? And like, we're not really known for our love of country music.
Sure.
You know? But living here in the Southwest, you know, you start to get exposed to some of that stuff, and it's like, okay, this is cool. There's more sides to...
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Yeah, we love Cross Canadian Ragweed, The Departed. Their new stuff is fantastic. Mickey and the Motor Cars, Reckless Kelly. Yeah, I mean, just so many of those bands are just solid.
Do you guys go to big concerts too still? Like
we do,
Arena?
We actually, one of the things that was cool was last year. So Iron Maiden, I've been an Iron Maiden fan for probably close to 30 years. And they're another band that just doesn't hit Vegas that often. And so they were coming into town, and I'm like, I've got to take my son to go see Iron Maiden. And you know, when you go to these bigger shows, because I love that smaller, intimate show so much, and being able to just like walk up and stand 3 feet from the stage if you want.
Right.
Like I love that.
Yeah.
But then like there's something like visceral about an arena show with a band that does it right. And I mean, if you want to go see an arena show where the band just knows what they're doing, Iron Maiden put on a fucking amazing show. And Bruce Dickinson sounds as good as ever. Like, you know, they've got Eddie, this 25-foot mechanical creature. I mean, it's so good. So we Foo Fighters. I'm a huge Foo Fighters fan, and have you been watching the stuff on HBO? Their document.
Love it. So I love. So I'm not like a huge like movie buff kind of guy, but I love documentaries.
Yeah,
like, I'm a documentary hound, which kind of leads like this whole podcasting thing, kind of like documentary. You know, the whole thing. I absolutely loved Sonic Highways. I mean, I was wrapped. I was hooked. And
that first episode. That first episode, I will say, Something from Nothing. Yeah, that is my favorite Foo Fighters song of all time. Like, that's another one where I love the way they do it, because you watch the show and you almost can build a connection to the song. And so when it comes on, like, you understand the power and the place where it came from, and all the pieces that went into it, and like, knowing the sum of the parts and the pieces, and like, you just feel it, and I love it, and that's
my favorite episode from the Sonic Highways was the Washington D.C. one.
Yeah,
because that's growing up close to D.C., I remember going to the 930 Club and seeing Bad Brains.
Yeah, a lot of
like,
punk stuff.
Lucy Brown and like all these old. You know, all these old bands that like Dave Grohl, Fugazi, one of my favorite bands of all time. You know what I mean? And he's like, you want to talk about a pioneer, a guy who gave no shits or fucks. You know, I Am McKay. You know, the whole independent recording thing and releasing their own records. I mean, he was like, you know, like Radiohead has nothing on what Fugazi was doing back then.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just, but that was my favorite one. And Bad Brains is one of my favorite bands of all time.
Yeah. Hard to go wrong. I like all that awesome punk stuff that they just pull out is just so solid. I mean,
you're just like, oh my god, I forgot about this. How did I?
Yeah,
I'm 44, almost 45 years old. How the hell did I forget about this shit?
I start watching the episodes, and I break out my phone and I just open up like notes, and like they talk about a band, and I'm like, I'll check them out.
Yep.
I'll check those guys out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go download their shit and theirs. So I just have this list of like music to check out that it's just like growing and growing. So.
Yeah, and I found that just interesting how, first of all, Grohl's a great storyteller, right? And how like visually he tells the whole story of the songs and the bands and the background and how things came together. I like the Nashville episode's fantastic. The Austin episode's fantastic.
They're all good.
You know, they're all good. If you guys are listening, if you haven't checked out Sonic Highways yet, definitely check out that documentary on HBO Go, or I'm sure it'll be on Netflix at some time soon.
Yeah.
YouTube, I'm sure it's somewhere. It might be somewhere out there on the interwebs that you can find. So, so let's in wrapping up, if you can give somebody one tip to create or develop happiness for themselves, like you sort of have, you know, with finding health again and CrossFit and family and hockey, and you know, what would you say to that person?
really, it's finding the time for yourself. Like, step away from your desk, and what you like to do is going to kind of find you, right? Like, whatever you're into right this minute, do a whole bunch of it. Just why not? Like, make sure you just kind of get away from your desk and just kind of have that ability to step outside of, like, you aren't your business, right? You are while you're at your desk, but step aside, because guess what, man? You're gonna be doing your business for a long time if things
Right.
go well. I mean, that's the hope, right? So
Exactly.
spend time on yourself. Spend time with the people you love.
Yep.
You're gonna be so much happier. I am. I'll
Yeah,
tell you right now.
yeah, likewise. I love that because that's exactly what we're trying to do with the show. I mean,
Yeah.
just, you are not your job. And I think today,
Yeah.
you've let people know way more about you than, what Nine Seeds does or
Right.
John Hawkins that they speak at WordCamp or whatnot. So thank you for being here. So last question is, in the future episodes of what I record, who would you like to see on the show?
Oh, that's a good question.
I actually stole that from Troy Dean. Troy Dean asks that question all the time. So thank
Huh.
you, Troy, for giving me an idea for that question.
What about somebody like Brian Gardner?
Oh, excellent. I'm a big fan of Brian Gardner and his minimalism and some of the
Yeah.
things that he's trying to do now with no sidebars.
Yeah.
I will
You know what?
definitely reach out to Brian. I would love to have Brian on our show.
Yeah, he's done, obviously he's done so much for the WordPress community, and I mean, my entire team, we are Genesis nerds. That's all
Likewise, yeah. Us
yeah,
too.
we build everything in Genesis, and but like, it's funny because he does a lot of posts where it shows like he's designing stuff, and I'm really kind of curious a little bit about his day-to-day stuff. Like, what does he do on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis? So, and here's the thing: if that doesn't work on your podcast, I know another podcast that he could come on and maybe talk about some of that
So,
stuff.
so tell us about that podcast and how people can contact you.
Cool. I too started a new podcast called the HawkTalk Podcast. I've actually recorded 3 episodes so far. HawkTalkPodcast.com. Come on out. It's a lot of fun. It's not a WordPress podcast. It's a conversation podcast.
I love it.
Very similar to this.
Yeah, people knowing people and how we all work and relate together. I mean, I think that's what really makes the world go round. And I think that, happy people relate to one another in positive ways.
You got time for one more story?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this.
So, one more story. I like to talk. I love to talk to people. I will talk to anybody. So, years ago, 25, 30 years ago, I had backstage pass tickets to go see Anthrax and somebody else. I didn't remember who the other band was, but so there was a meet and greet with Anthrax. There's a line of people, and Charlie Benante, the drummer, is up there at the front signing autographs. So me and this guy that I'm with, we get to the front, and I knew that Charlie Benante had just got a tattoo. And so we get to the front, and I'm like, "Hey, Charlie, can you sign this?" Great. I said, "Hey, by the way, can I check out your ink?" He's like, "Oh, yeah, sure." Unzips his sweatshirt. He's wearing a Sinead O'Connor t-shirt. I'm like, "Oh, that's badass," which I thought was so awesome. This dude from Anthrax wearing a Sinead O'Connor. So I chat about that, and then he shows me the tattoo. Then I start talking about my tattoos and blah, 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 blah. Apparently, I hold up the line of people waiting to get... But this is just the way that I am. I will literally talk to anybody. So finally we break and we start to, "Hey, thanks, man. Nice meeting you. Da da da." Shake his hand and I walk away. And my buddy, I turn and he's just like, I'm like, "What?" He's like, how do you do that?" I'm like, "Well, how do I do what?" He's like, "You just talk to him for like 10 minutes. I'm like, "So?" Like, he's just a dude.
Right.
He plays drums, yes, and we know him because of that, but he's just a dude. He got a tattoo and blah, blah, blah. I wanted to talk to him. I was interested in his thing. And that's kind of like that right there sums me up completely.
Right.
I will talk to anybody. I'm interested. I want to know what you do. I want to know what you're about. What do you like? What don't you like? But I want to know everything. There you go. You want to know John Hawkins? John Hawkins wants to know fucking everything. There you go.
So you're going to be an excellent podcast host.
That's my hope. We'll see.
I mean, and it's fun. It's fun, if for no other reason. I mean, like we just said, you and Charlie connected. You get to connect with other people through conversation, and through these conversations, we kind of figure out, how we're alike and how we're more alike than different.
Totally.
And without talking to people and learning about one another, we just from the outset, like, that person's way different than me. Or, he lives in Vegas or he lives in New York, and they can't be the same. Or he plays drums for Anthrax. What do I have in common with him? Oh, wait a second. We're all people.
Quite a lot, you find out.
Yeah, and it's just like we all go through the same shit together, and it's just how you deal with it and how you handle it.
Yep.
So tell everybody how people can get in touch with you and more and HawkTalk.com. Is that what it is?
HawkTalkPodcast.com.
Okay.
You can get a hold of me. I blog semi-regularly these days over at VegasGeek.com or my company, 9seeds.com.
Awesome. Well, John, thanks for coming on. I look forward to talking to you more, and I'm sure I will bump into you in Phoenix in a couple of weeks.
I'll see you in a couple of weeks at Pressnomics. Absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Had a great time. Bye.
Well, there you have it. So thank you for being on the show, John. That was a lot of fun. I definitely knew we had all that in common with the hockey and stuff. I love the way you're telling stories and the way we are all, we are all people. And, we are not, what we do. We are, the sum, we are all these other parts that make us, this one whole thing. So, John, thank you for your time. Again, check out HawkTalkPodcast.com. I know that John's got a lot of big things planned, and he has some great guests coming up. So I thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been the More Than the Career podcast, and I'm Greg Taylor, and hope you can check us out again sometime. Thanks. Good night.